Ladies and gentlemen, Bakhmut has fallen. Artyomovsk has been taken by the Wagner Group and the Russian army. I want to go through some kind of funny statements by the BBC, which have claimed that I don't know if you remember back in March. They claimed that Russian reservists were fighting with shovels. I think it's pretty impressive that a army with shovels are fighting in, for example, Bakhmut, and yeah, and they took the city. Must have been hypersonic shovels, I believe, right? Some ridiculous shit, really. It says here Russian reservists could be using shovels for hand to hand combat in Ukraine due to a shortage of ammunition, the UK's Ministry of Defense says. In late February, reservists described being ordered to assault a Ukrainian position armed with only firearms and shovels, the ministry said in its latest intelligence update. It mentioned a shovel known as MPL 50. I don't know if you've seen a meme where they put the shovel inside of a RPG, and yeah, that's probably the sort of picture or image they want to paint for the average ignorant Western audience. I mean, obviously they want to portray the Russians as stupid, as incompetent, as backward. Uh, the Russian army is not 10 feet tall. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a damn good army. Okay? They made some mistakes. You have to understand. They did not want to do a shock and awe attack on Ukraine. That wasn't their purpose. Okay? The main purpose wasn't even to destroy the Ukrainian like government, that is to say killing Zelensky, okay? They want to demilitarize Ukraine, destroy the Ukrainian army because it's used as a NATO proxy. Now, the Russians did discover this is not going to be a fast victory. They realized this is a war of attrition, and that's why this war has taken such a long time, and it's still going to go on. Perhaps till the autumn, maybe till the winter of 2023, perhaps in the beginning of 2024. You have to remember that I'm quoting Henry Kissinger now. Henry Kissinger said, I believe, that this is the best army of Europe. Okay? The Wagner Group, which is often portrayed as a gang of mercenaries and criminals, and yes, there have been criminals in their ranks. They stopped recruiting, though. But so what? There's French foreign legionnaires that are criminals. I mean, like, this is not an uncommon thing to do. Like, some armies do recruit people that have a criminal record. Now, obviously, not every type of crime, but as far as I understood it, light sentences, so to speak, um, in order to redeem themselves, again, back to society, right? So, this this mercenary army, as they call it, which they claim is fighting with shovels, for example, or that they are using human wave attacks. Yeah, it has defeated the the largest army in Europe and the best army, European army of NATO. That's quite an incredible feat, if you ask me. And if you remember, they would always mock the Russians when they did a retreat. But they didn't tell the the Western audience why they would make such retreats. The Russians were willing to give up land to preserve the lives of their soldiers as much as possible, at least. Okay? The Ukrainians have taken incredible losses in Bakhmut. Huge losses. I mean, unproportionate. And the fact that Western media keeps on claiming that uh, that that the Russian army is poorly equipped, that it's incompetent. The Ukrainian colonel Andrei Bilinsky, I believe his name is Biletsky. Sorry, he used to be the general of the or the colonel of the Azov battalion, as far as I remember. He says here in the Business Insider, this is what he says: Ukraine colonel dismisses reports that Russians are poorly equipped as more TikTok propaganda than reality. And I assume he says this now because, well, Ukrainians are in desperate need of weapons. Uh, they they Zelensky is going all around the world just begging for handouts left and right. I mean, he even went to the Arab League summit in Jeddah, right? And completely embarrassed himself and Mohammed bin Salman. By the way, I mean, everybody was looking at him like, "What? He's talking about colonialism and like." Was he ever condemning the Israeli human rights violations on the Palestinians? Yeah. Well, we can read a little bit from this Business Insider article. And it says Russia has for months made the eastern Ukrainian city of Bakhmut the central target of its invasion. It first made gains, but it has more recently lost some of those gains to a Ukraine counteroffensive. In the midst of those back and forth battles, reports circulated that Russian fighters were poorly equipped. Ukrainian Colonel Andrei Beletsky, however, now says those claims are more TikTok propaganda than reality. The enemy is ready, Beletsky, the commander of Ukraine's 3rd Separate Assault Brigade, told the New York Times. They are well personally equipped, armed, they have means of communication, good armored vehicles, and a very good system of unmanned aerial vehicles. Damn right. Ukraine had a little bit of luck with the HIMARS, but the Russians managed to jam those radars. Okay? As of late, they also blew up a Patriot system missile, the Patriot missile system, right? With the Kinzhals. Now, the Ukrainians have now gone, the Ukrainian government is telling people now stop taking pictures and videos of this, and they're denying that the Patriot missile system was destroyed. Here's what I think about American military equipment in general. I think it's a bunch of useless, expensive toys. It's overly complicated, and yeah, as you can see, the Patriot missile got destroyed. The Patriot missile has actually, was the HIMARS or the Patriots? I don't remember, but Scott Ritter said that either one of these systems, I believe it was the Patriot system, actually shot down more friendly aircraft in the Iraq War than the enemy. So, I mean, it's not a, yeah. There you have the F-16, and they're gonna send F-16s now to Ukraine. Who's gonna fly them? I think it's gonna be NATO personnel that have resigned from the army, because training Ukrainian pilots in fighting in flying these is gonna take at least a year, if not more. So yeah. Anyway, Biletsky remarks come as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a much anticipated in-person appearance at the G7 summit in Hiroshima, Japan on Saturday. Zelensky's effort to convince allies to further support Ukraine with additional weapons has overshadowed the summit's goal to address issues beyond just the conflict in Ukraine, like China's use of trade restrictions, the Washington Post reported. After months of brutal fighting in Ukraine's east, Ukrainian forces earlier this month launched a counteroffensive, reclaiming territory in Bakhmut during a 3-day battle that appeared to take Russian forces by surprise. As far as I know, a lot of that territory has been claimed back. So, allegedly at least. Beletsky described that. Sorry about that. Beletsky described that counteroffensive in an interview with the Times. He said Ukrainian soldiers advanced on Russian forces as they were rotating units, allowing them to gain an upper hand. He said they attacked as quickly as possible, immediately trying to advance behind the enemy's front line. The number one task was to push back the enemy on the flanks of Bakhmut, Belitsky told the Times. We used 3 types of maneuvers: infiltration, frontal attack, and turning movement. Well, didn't help, did it? Because Ukraine doesn't control the city. And one of the reasons why it took such a long time to take Bakhmut, because the fighting in Bakhmut has been going on for almost a year. You have to remember, the Ukrainians are very good at building entrenched fortifications and tunnels and similar things. And at the time, the Wagner group was understaffed, or the Russian army in general was undermanned in Ukraine, and yeah, so they didn't really make much progress back in them days. However, once they started making more and more progress, Surovikin was appointed. Surovikin decided that, hey, you know what? This is a war of attrition, and we're going to use Bakhmut as almost like a pit where we're just going to suck in the Ukrainian army and basically demilitarize it. So that's why it has taken such a long time. In fact, I don't know if people remember, Prigozhin even said that he wants the Ukrainians to just send in more and more troops because they're killing off their soldiers. Sadly, okay? I think it is a very sad thing. That's why it was called Operation Meat Grinder, right? I think it was called the Meat Grinder by both sides, actually. So there you have it. And the Ukrainians themselves admit that the Russian army is a strong army. They have a lot of advanced modern weapons. So that's how it is. And here's another article from Business Insider. A top Ukrainian commander fighting around Bakhmut says military experts who portray Russian soldiers as only stupid and miserable are wrong. Now, I think that I don't know if Zaluzhny is going to be the he's been missing, by the way. Not missing, but he's been gone for quite some time. General Mark Milley claimed he had a conversation with him, but nobody has seen him in public for quite some time. And it's a very good question, who's going to be the fall guy for the Ukraine debacle. I don't necessarily think it's going to be Zelensky, because they portrayed him as this, I don't know, the symbol of democracy itself, right? I think it might be Zaluzhny, could be other people, It's going to be interesting to see. I think they are going to advance towards Kramatorsk, if I'm not mistaken. Avdiivka, yeah, I think it's called. I'm not really good with the names, but yeah, somewhere around there. It's going to be interesting to see how this is going to develop, but the the media is trying to cope. Obviously, they want to say that this is a unimportant city. It's just a symbolic value, whatever. But no, it's done, my friends. The city of Artyomovsk, as it's called, is under Russian control. It's only like small parts of the outskirts where they're still doing mopping operations and so forth. So, yes. Thank you for watching, guys. Hit the subscribe button and don't forget to click on the notification bell so you won't miss any new videos. Thank you very much. Bye.